All right, let's try and put this into perspective. Huge international as well as domestic implications for this decision. Let's try and make sense of this. Firstly, let's answer the question, why did China relent after so many years? Here in our studios, Parthasarathy is former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan. Major General retired Rajesh Arya, defense analyst here in our studios. Zafar Islam, spokesperson of the BJP. Sanjay Jha, spokesperson of the Congress. From Pakistan, Kamar Chima, strategic and political analyst. Michael Kugelman is South Asia expert at the Wilson Center. Let me start with you, High Commissioner Parthasarathy. I mean, you've lived through this as well. The last 10 years, we've been trying to get the Chinese to lift this technical hold. Why do you believe they did so now?
Well, I think it's what the Russians used to say, a correlation of forces which now exists in the world. The resolution was being co-sponsored by 3 permanent members, the United States, France and UK. The Russians had assured us that whereas they had problems in co-sponsoring it, they would support the resolution. So every 4 out of the 5 members of the Security Council were on board. The reading was we would get possibly, definitely, 14 out of this 15. Now, China would not want to be seen isolated in that form. This is why they never wanted it to allow it to go for a vote. And when it was pushed for a vote, they had no option but to find a face-saving way out.
So you think they were afraid of the loss of face if it came to the full council?
You see, look at it there from their point of view. In Asia, they are asserting their power. They are being seen as an emerging co-equal of the United States. To end up with a fiasco in the Security Council on the eve of that, which they were headed for, there was something they did not want. So,
that's why they've
and the other thing is, I think after the meeting of Mr. Modi and President Xi Jinping in Wuhan, there is an understanding between us of just how much we will cooperate. Don't forget, you have had the Indian fleet in China exercising with the Chinese. So when they are being isolated, India, and especially you spoke of Indonesia, they are having problems with Indonesia also. India, Indonesia on their east coast matter, and they don't want to seem isolated on a lost cause for some guy who is wanted. You know,
it's not even backing another country, it's backing a terrorist.
He has been accused of wanting to assassinate Musharraf. This was stated in Pakistan's National Assembly in 2004.
General Arya, but we know these factors were there in play before as well. The fact that the Chinese have done this, I don't think it's accidental, I don't think it's coincidental that they've decided to do this bang in the middle of an election cycle, which everybody knows has implications. Are the Chinese also sending out a message to the ruling party, to the current dispensation, that look, we're going out of our way. This is one of your core concerns. We're meeting you halfway. Meet us halfway if and when you come back.
Good evening, Zaka. First of all, my reading of China is slightly different than what we see these days, is that China is under a tremendous pressure and there may be a threat of losing economically to India in the years to come. If I go by the news coming out in the papers, a lot of foreign manufacturing facilities are shifting their bases, have decided to shift their bases to India. It was there in the newspapers. That is, if that happens, those companies, and particularly the US companies or the European companies, which have a very large bases in China, if they decide to shift out of China to the Indian region, which is more economical to them, that is a very bad thing for China, and that is one pressure. Second thing, we missed out, I think somewhere in the media missed out, the DGISPR had one of the largest press conference 3 days back on 27th of April, which was the 60 days of the 27th February incident. I went through all this 1 hour and 25 minutes of press conference with about 15 odd questions with both major national media and the international media. Though they made a ground of just nationalizing 30,000 madrasas, but they spent 25 minutes on this incident in the Pakistan. There he made very blatant false claims of Indian security actions, both at Pulwama and what happened on 27th and 28th February. I am sure that would have not gone well with the foreign media. Right? That, and what major statement made in that was, there is no organized terrorist organization as well as organized terrorists, identified terrorists in Pakistani soil.
Okay.
This discredits them.
Let me get the political spokesperson Zafar Islam and Sanjay Jha also into this conversation. Zafar Islam, you know, we've all had previous programs as well when the Chinese put this on technical hold and said that we're not going to go with what India wants, the prescription of Masood Azhar as a global terrorist. Two things stand out for me. Clearly, I think Ambassador Parthasarathy is right. There is this huge thing in China about loss of face. So if it came to the council and if 14 members were voting on one side and they were the only one who was protecting seemingly a terrorist, then they wouldn't want to be publicly exposed like that. That's number one. And two, perhaps at some level, the Chinese are also giving out a signal that if the political equations here in India seem to suggest that the ruling dispensation is in an advantageous position or could likely come back, then this is an IOU.
Zaka, I think you must give credit to the Prime Minister for adopting the foreign policy in last 5 years. It's a massive victory for India. And I think everybody should thrill with joy. It's a festivities time for India. Every single citizen, whether irrespective of which political party they are affiliated to, including I would request Sanjay Jha to thrill with joy purely because it's a win for India. Not for any particular party, but it's a massive win for India. And of course, you must give credit. Like for surgical strike, we said it's a political win which actually resulted in that surgical strike. Here also, it's a diplomatic surgical strike by the government of Pakistan. And we have achieved our objective, whatever we wanted to achieve, which was outstanding for last 10 years.
No, so you are saying that Pulwama has been avenged.
There are two things.
First you had the Balakot airstrike, which was the military action, and now the diplomatic action.
Absolutely, that's what I said.
So Pulwama has been avenged. Is that what you're saying?
There are two things which, absolutely. And there are two things which I would like to tell you, Zaka. First, the world community has recognized that India is no more a soft nation.
Okay.
The power and which has been demonstrated by the Prime Minister in the last 5 years is something which everyone to see. That even a strong nation like
what is
China
the second point? What is the second point?
To achieve the request of the global community that to declare. Second point, the Prime Minister of India, historically you have never seen a Prime Minister of India is getting that kind of recognition and acceptance as a leader, a global leader by the global community.
Sanjay Jha respond. Zafar Islam says this is a completion. This is a fruition of all the efforts. One second, Zafar. So you had the military action. One second. You had the military action through the Balakot airstrikes. Now you have the diplomatic action where for 10 years we've been trying to proscribe this man as a global terrorist. Finally, it's happened today on the 1st of May 2019. You should give some credit to the government.
Well, Zaka, since the BJP spokesperson has made this into a political campaign, it's only appropriate that I give it a political response. But I will not indulge in rhetoric. I'll give you some hard facts. If Masood Azhar is been branded as a global terrorist, it's welcome. I don't think anybody's going to complain about that. Very pertinent, however, to note a couple of points. Just today, there has been a brutal Naxal attack on our soldiers. And we know that 16 of our people have died here in Maharashtra where I live. And I want to know who's going to apologize for another disastrous intelligence failure that has led to the death of 16 of our soldiers after 45 in Pulwama. Point number two, Hafiz Saeed was branded as a global terrorist when the UPA government was in power within 14 days of the 2008-26/11 attacks. But let me tell you the reality. You are dealing with Pakistan here. And let not the BJP mislead the viewers who are watching your highly popular and respected show. Hafiz Saeed, by the way, has not just been branded as a global terrorist, he has a $10 million bounty on his head. And guess what? He gives speeches all over the place, and to make matters from bad to worse, he contested the general elections in Pakistan.
No, so are you suggesting that the UN blacklisting this man as a terrorist has no impact, has no value? At least doesn't materially mean anything.
Well, let me give you, for the benefit of viewers, the
Sanjay Jha,
that it really entails. It says that you will ban the assets. 1 minute, don't interrupt. Zafar, don't interrupt. I'm making a serious conversation here. You can come back. Assets have to be frozen. You and I know, Zaka, that the assets of terrorists is never in some tangible form or bank balances. It's always done through illegal, arms sales and black money. Point number 2, very critical. They say that you have to stop an arms embargo, put an arms embargo on the guy. You think they acquire arms through a direct purchase from arms manufacturers? Never. Third, travel. You think a terrorist really travels in a first class on British Airways?
No, one second. You may question the effectiveness of the arms embargo and the asset freeze, but certainly on the travel ban, I'm just going by the example of Hafiz Saeed. Since he was proscribed in 2008, I don't think he's ever left that country. But anyway, what we're seeing on the right are pictures of Prime Minister Modi at a rally in Jaipur, and he came in and he said that I thought this was a Chunavi Sabha. It looks like a Vijay Sabha. I don't know if that's in reference to what happened at the UNSC. But let me get some international voices in. Let me get Kamar Chima in and Michael Kugelman into this conversation. Kamar Chima, for the longest time, you were leaning in on the Chinese and using their power as a permanent member of the Security Council to put this on technical hold and also to veto it on an occasion or two. Now, have even the Chinese given up on you? Is that the implication of today's decision?
Well, I think, Zaka, I would like to tell you and the others in the panel that if Masood Azhar has been designated as a terrorist, that is not because of the Kashmir or because of the Pulwama. He has been designated a terrorist because he has been helping Al-Qaeda, he has been associating with the Taliban, and he has been recruiting jihadis for Afghanistan.
Where does it say that in the listing?
You read the UN...
Where does it say that in the resolution?
Listen, I'm telling you about the resolution. You need to read it again. The question is that he has not been designated because of Kashmir and Pulwama. He has been helping Al-Qaeda. He has been helping Taliban. He has been recruiting people for the jihad in Afghanistan, and that is one
all
thing.
Of which, one second. No, Mr. Chima, all of that he's been doing for the last 10 years. What suddenly changed for the Chinese to lift the technical hold?
The question is that Pakistan is directly getting affected. That if a person is having links with Al-Qaeda, if a person is having links with the Taliban,
who is going to buy this argument?
This is not a stupid argument. This is the most genuine argument. Which seems stupid because you need to read.
Terrorist
This is
activities
not about
in
Pulwama and Kashmir. This is about his links with Al-Qaeda.
Let me go to Michael Kugelman,
I think
please.
this is
One second. Michael Kugelman, we know that, diplomatically the US, UK and France, who were sponsors of this resolution, have been speaking separately to the Chinese. We know India has had multiple conversations with the Chinese on this. I'm again trying to understand what made the Chinese relent. Is it public embarrassment or the prospect of public embarrassment, the loss of face, had this matter gone to a vote in the Full Security Council, or is there some kind of a quid pro quo that's going on?
Well, I think there's some long-standing and newer reasons why China decided to step back this time. And the long-standing reasons, the Belt and Road Initiative is a big thing for China and it requires stability in the broader region, including in Pakistan. And any terrorist is destabilizing, even one like Masood Azhar, whose organization does not stage attacks in Pakistan. And clearly there had been growing international pressure on China ever since the Pulwama attack and ever since the India-Pakistan crisis. Also, for China, this had always been a low-risk, low-cost move to let Azhar get listed because given the nature of the Pakistan-China relationship, Pakistan was not going to get upset or lash out or do damaging things to China. Pakistan was not going to stop taking Chinese loans or stop CPEC or anything like that. So, and also, China must have known that it would get some goodwill, it would get some international goodwill out of the decision to let Azhar get listed at a time when China's image is increasingly troubled given how it treats Uyghurs. So that's that. In terms of the newer factors, well, there had been the resolution that was brought in March to get Azhar listed, and China decided not to back out then. But then you have this newer resolution that comes so soon after the last one, and I think for China the optics of, basically being an obstacle 2 times in a row so close together I think that would have been too much to do.
What has also happened over the last few days is there was this BRI forum, and I want Ambassador Parthasarathy to weigh in on this, a Belt and Road forum that happened in Beijing. India, remember, is one of the big, large economies that's still not part of BRI. Indonesia has also had some very serious reservations about the Belt and Road Initiative. And at that forum, Xi Jinping and Imran Khan had a session, and we'll try and play out those pictures as well. Do you believe there's any linkage of what happened today at the Sanctions Committee to the BRI and the fact that India is not part of the BRI? Imran Khan was in Beijing last week. The Indonesians have their own reservations about it.
Zaka, there I don't agree, because I think Pakistan, as Mr. Kugelman says, remains a instrument for low-cost containment of India by China.
Yeah.
That is a larger strategic thing. Pakistan is a pawn in this game, despite what our Pakistani friend may think. They are to be used, take Gwadar, get maritime access, but they will pay a very heavy price, and they'll go bankrupt on as Sri Lanka has gone on Hambantota, as Kenya has gone on Mombasa, and as Zambia has gone on Lusaka Airport. So these Chinese projects have their own ends, because when they get you into a debt trap, you're stuck.
Yeah.
And that is a larger Chinese policy, and I don't find fault with it. That's a choice they made.
But you don't think their action today at the UNSC will drive a wedge between them and Pakistan?
No, I don't know. Oh, absolutely not. China, because, as I said, Pakistan by itself does not matter. It is Pakistan as a factor for low-cost containment of India, and like they have the North Koreans and South Koreans to play off on Japan.
Yeah.
So this is a Chinese realpolitik. We have to learn to live with it. And I think the important point is we're learning to live with it. By the way, we say, okay, fine, we'll exercise with your Navy, or we'll expand trade with you. You have the Foreign Secretary go there.
Yeah.
And don't forget, this follows a categorical assurance given to the Foreign Secretary. So, as I look at this, from my point of view, the Pakistanis stand isolated on this. Now all 15 members. And as for what my Pakistani friend says about this Masood Azhar, I just want to remind him I've dealt with these people before he even entered college. In 2004, General Javed Ashraf Qazi, former DG of the ISI, said the following in Parliament: we must acknowledge that Masood Azhar was responsible, and the Jaish-e-Mohammed was responsible for the, I'm quoting his exact words, for the attack on the Indian Parliament and for an attempt to assassinate President Musharraf.
Yeah.
So the ISI, Musharraf goes, Kayani comes in, finds him useful, brings him back. And he's useful to them as an instrument to use against. But how long they will do it, I don't know, because the Barelvis seem to be having other views in the frontier province.
Not just one, but at least 3 attempts on the life of the then President Musharraf. But I've just got a copy of this listing at the United Nations Security Council 1267. This incidentally is called the Al-Qaeda and ISIL Sanctions Committee. It talks about the listing of the JEM in 2001 for participating in and financing, planning, facilitating activities of terror in the name of or on behalf of Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, or the Taliban. Azhar is also a former leader of the terrorist group, the Harkatul Mujahideen and the Harkatul Ansar. Most of these groups are currently joined the JEM under Azhar's leadership. It also talks about 2008 process of recruitment. None of this, though, mentions anything, Zafar Islam, and you might want to weigh in on this, about either Pulwama or India's reasons for him being listed for the recent attacks, Pathankot, or the recent attacks that we've seen.
This is what I was saying you.
One second, let Zafar respond, please.
Zakat, this is what I was saying you.
Let Zafar respond, please.
To whom you were calling stupid.
Zaka.
I didn't call you stupid, sorry.
Zaka.
Yeah.
No, I will still call him a stupid. And it said that he was making a very stupid argument, and I'll still make that statement again.
Victory.
You know why, Zaka?
Everyone
knows
how
Pakistan and China was trying to protect him.
We're going to take it at the same time.
All Pakistan, make no mistake, Mr. Chima, make no mistake. It is because of India's foreign policy, it is because of India's persistence to declare him as a global terrorist. It has happened today.
No, Zafar,
Both
answer Remo,
Mr.
particular
Zafar, let
question.
me tell you,
One second, Chima. One second, Mr. Chima.
We made it happen. You couldn't do it in last 10 years.
Answer a pertinent question. Was this?
You could not do it in 10 years.
Was
We did
this
it
the
because we
compromise?
wanted it
One
to
second,
be.
Mr. Chima. I'm asking a question to Zafar Islam. 1 second. Was this the compromise that was needed to get the eventual outcome, which was the proscription of Masood Azhar as a global terrorist? Was this the compromise that needed to be done? Zafar, yeah.
Zaka, honestly, I would not like to go through the documents what you have just read. What is important for this nation and the people of this country, that Masood Azhar is a terrorist. He is responsible for all the terrorist activities in India, including Pulwama attack, and every citizen of this country knows that he is a terrorist. He is a terrorist and is responsible for all the terrorist activities. I am not overly concerned what exactly has been written there.
Okay.
My only concern that he should be declared as a terrorist. And let me tell you one more thing.
Okay.
I am terribly disappointed the way Mr. Sanjay Jha responded to my request of be happy today, at least thrilled with joy. But he was not. He was making unnecessary comments. I think this will isolate them completely.
Sanjay,
in India,
at the end of the day,
it is a very sensitive
of course it
issue.
is. Of course, it's a
And
sensitive
yes,
issue.
the Congress party is taking a stand which is contrary to the expectation of the people of this
Can I take
country.
a non-political, apolitical view of this?
Zaka, go
I mean, aside of whatever compromises or whatever, the language of the listing and the language of the resolution, the fact is, look at the outcome and judge the outcome, because the outcome is this man has been globally proscribed as a terrorist, something that's taken 10 years to happen at the UNSC.
Zaka,
No, 1 second.
your
Sanjay
entire argument has
Sanjay
failed
Jha,
in
1
this.
second. Sanjay Jha.
Zaka, let me, excuse me. Zaka, let me tell you, I mean, we have been in government for over 55 years. We understand international negotiations. And Mr. Parthasarathy is sitting there, maybe you can ask him this. But other members of the Union Security Council United Nations Security Council had included Pulwama, had included Kashmir. And I think if the Indian kind of political establishment of the BJP believes that not having Pulwama, which happened just a few months ago, and we know what a dastardly attack it was, is victory. I mean, I have already explained to you that Hafiz Saeed is roaming around free. I mean, the Pakistan establishment is going to protect Jaish-e-Mohammed, is going to protect Masood Azhar, is known. I mean, this is not a mystery. So I think what I'm really disappointed with the BJP, and you told me that Narendra Modi is claiming it as a victory, is that this is extremely, in my opinion, pedestrian. The larger challenge remains. You have failed on an internal security today. I mean, 16 people have been killed in cold blood. That's a brutal massacre. And the BJP is here claiming victory. I think you need to have some decency and dignity in a political debate.
No one
I
is shying
said
away from
welcome anything that is of proscriptions against Masood Azhar. But how can the BJP treat it as a diversity tactic on a day when we have lost soldiers? There are martyrs who have died.
I think it's important also to point out that this is an effort, and again, successive governments have tried. The UPA was in power till 2014. They've also tried to do this. The NDA has been in power since 2014.
Please?
1 second, Zafar, 1 second. We have Praveen Swami as well. He's Group Consulting Editor with News 18. Praveen, the point of debate has been this. What made China relent? And now we've got information from this listing. We're looking at the language of this listing. There's no reference to Pulwama. There's no reference to Kashmir. Was this the compromise required to get the eventual outcome? And should we be more focused on the outcome, which is the blacklisting of Masood Azhar, more than just, what led to it?
Well, if you look at 1267 blacklistings in general, you'll find that the language is usually extremely bland. This is undoubtedly a victory, but I think it's important to understand just what that victory entails, which isn't necessarily as big as the hype. It calls on Pakistan, it's going to call on Pakistan to impose a travel ban on Azhar, which doesn't mean very much since he'd be an idiot to travel abroad where he'd be immediately arrested. And it will call for his financial assets to be seized, which Pakistan insists don't exist because the Jaish-e-Mohammed has been a banned organization since 2001 in Pakistan. Now, the interesting part about this story isn't what this is going to mean on the ground, which isn't very much, but why the Chinese did it.
Yeah.
And there are possibly a couple of reasons there. The first is that China has very substantial investments in both, of course, in Pakistan to the order of $55 billion, but also in India to the order of almost, if I'm not wrong, $25 billion. Now, after Pulwama, China clearly understood that terrorism against India is something that can lead to war, and war is really bad for investments. The second reason is the Chinese have been very concerned about India, what they see as India's support for Tibetan nationalists. And you've seen New Delhi moving to tone that particular issue down to maintain a little distance over a while. But I think the big issue here is that China wants peace and stability. It's understood after Pulwama that peace and stability is going to be threatened by terrorism. And it's shown its concern to Pakistan. Now, whether Pakistan gets that message or not, we don't know. Remember, in very similar circumstances in 2002,
Yeah.
General Pervez Musharraf eased off on terrorism for 5 years, and in slightly better circumstances from 2008 on, things got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
So just to build on to this point the other gentlemen on the show were making about political point scoring, I think it's important for both political parties to stop trading barbs and to be on the same page on this, because this isn't quite the end of the show right yet. There's going to be many years of struggle still ahead.
Okay, I get that.
Before this problem is resolved.
If I can get Ambassador Parthasarathy, with the Chinese, there's nothing that's accidental or coincidental. The fact that this has happened in the middle of an election cycle, and certainly there's going to be, I'm convinced in my mind that there's going to be a political benefit to the BJP and the ruling dispensation because of this. The Chinese are not oblivious to that fact. The Chinese would have factored that in as well.
Yeah, lots of countries are not oblivious. The UAE has not been oblivious.
Yeah.
The Russians have not been oblivious with an award and so on. Yeah, every country, if I'm posted in a country, in Pakistan, I would go for the
So is this
there.
some kind of an IOU? I mean, I'm using a very simplistic phrase, but
no, I think this is their assessment. But I want to tell you this: in an ultimate analysis, in an election, I care about our assessment by our people. Everybody does. So therefore, I tend to look at this the way that Praveen has looked at it. This is certainly a step forward. It is certainly an achievement. And let's not forget that it also came in the aftermath of Balakot, which made countries like France and Germany worried that this situation, as he says about China, should not escalate. So that was, Balakot was in that way indirectly connected with this. So it's a combination, what they put is a combination of circumstances which produced a good result. I said every Indian, irrespective of political party, should celebrate
should celebrate today. You think the overhang of Balakot and the fact, at least for some weeks, there was a real threat that things could go out of hand between India and Pakistan,
Definitely.
could have weighed in on today's decision?
Definitely. I think some good sense prevailed on both sides that we restrained ourselves.
Yeah.
But the world community was worried, and they remained worried for a very long time after that, and we saw the results within 2-3 days what happened.
Yeah.
Right? No, Pakistan was asked to stop hyping what they did, and we also stayed back. China, the Europe, the US, they don't want any escalated relation, bad relation between India and Pakistan, which can lead to an all-out war. I'm sure the India also doesn't want it. I'm sure the Pakistan is last one to want a war. So this is a very good indicator today from China, that China has given an indication to both Pakistan and India, play it cool.
Okay. I want to go back
hits its economic interest.
To Michael Kugelman, because there is of course the American dimension to this as well. We know that America and China have their own sort of trade problems. Steve Mnuchin is in Beijing right now, if I'm not mistaken. We also know that just recently, last week, America lifted some of the exceptions made on Iran, which had a direct implication on India as well. To help us try and sort of weave what the sort of geopolitical strands are here, vis-a-vis the Americans, the Chinese, and how the Iranians are also involved in this, because Iran and Pakistan have also had their own recent bloody history.
Well, I mean, I don't think we should overthink it that much. I mean, clearly the United States for quite some time has been trying to get China to change its view. I mean, the United States is not the only key player that's been trying to get China to change its position on the Azhar situation. But clearly, particularly since the Pulwama attack and since the India-Pakistan crisis, Washington has really put its foot on the accelerator in its efforts to get China to relent. And I think that, the United States sees that China's position has started to evolve a bit on the global stage in terms of how it sees this issue of Pakistani terrorists. I mean, it's seen that, China did not stand in the way at FATF, at the Financial Action Task Force, to get Pakistan sanctioned. And China in the last few years has joined into these statements issued by BRICS and the Heart of Asia Conference that have identified Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed by name. So I think the U.S. has seen that, and it's seen that as an opportunity, as a window of opportunity to try to push China a bit more. Clearly, it was very disappointed that China did not let Azhar get designated back in March, but I think that made it just want to intensify the pressure now, and we see what's happened.
So, Qamar Chima, there are actions that are expected from Pakistan post this listing. I want to go back to the Hafiz Saeed example. Not that his life changed very much after his listing back in 2008. Will anything be different this time around? Given we know Pakistan has financial problems, we know the debt situation, we know how much Pakistan needs the international community, possible international bailout, and certainly how much Pakistan needs the Chinese right now.
Well, I think Pakistan stands with the global commitments, and I think this is what Pakistan is doing right now. We fought our war against Al-Qaeda, and that is why I think Pakistan's case has proven that those elements which will work against the ambit of the state, and they will not be in the fold of the state, they will face serious sanctions. And at the same time, I think Pakistan really wants. Let me finish my argument, Zaka. And at the same time, what I want to tell is that since Prime Minister Modi was contesting election on the national security ground, it may be good for him, but I think Pakistan's position has been clear that Masood Azhar has not been declared terrorist because of the legitimate struggle of Kashmir or because of his links with the Pulwama, but because of his links with Al-Qaeda.
Quick.
I have one little point to make to my Pakistani friend, which amused me. He said because of their contribution against Al-Qaeda. They had a terrific contribution. They had Osama bin Laden living next to their military academy for almost 6 years.
So
and
that
now
means,
it turns out
if the IS people who have did the terrorist activities in Sri Lanka, it means you were involved in that?
One second. I mean, Osama bin Laden was picked up in a U.S. Navy SEALs operation in your country.
Islamic State elements in India were
you can't run away from that fact. Anyway, one second. I want to go back to Praveen. Praveen, in terms of what the road ahead is, because I keep going back to this. There are things that the Chinese want from India, and we know some of it. Certainly, BRI is top of that list. What may this mean, let's say post-June, once the elections are done with, and once we have a government in place?
I think, obviously, the critical measure is going to be to look at what Pakistan actually does between now and the installation of a new government in New Delhi on dismantling Jaish-e-Mohammed's infrastructure. We all know what that infrastructure is. The intelligence services, not just of India, but of much of most major countries, are well aware of that activity is still going on at major Jaish facilities and at camps, that money is being collected in the countryside, and this is something that we're going to have to keep a close eye on. So Pakistan's going to make commitments to the FATF. How much does it deliver on those? The second thing I think that's going to have to be really thought through is that Pakistan has in the past often tested India's resolve and determination.
Yeah.
So, India has signaled that we intend to retaliate against acts of terrorism. At what thresholds will India retaliate? At how far will it go? There will probably be some pushing and prodding when this new government comes in to test its resolve. And India will have to have thought in advance how it is going to respond to those situations.
Okay.
And finally, of course, the biggest thing to watch out for, what happens with the FATF and what happens with this IMF talks process, because that's going to be the rein, if you like, on the Pakistan military.
Do you believe, General Arya, that now that the Pakistanis have also come on board in this decision to proscribe Masood Azhar is taken, it might ease up some of the pressure on Pakistan in October, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes.
The issue of the grey list. Would this ease up the pressure on the Pakistanis? What does this mean? And I am convinced that the economic situation of Pakistan right now is a major contributor, if not a contributor, certainly in the backdrop of what's happened today at the UNSC.
Zaka, I again go back to the latest, what I heard from Pakistan on the 27th on the press conference. As far as Pakistan attitude toward India is concerned, there is going to be no change.
There's going to be no change.
No change.
Imran Khan saying that we'd rather have a right-disposed government under Mr. Modi to help solve the India-Pakistan conundrum. You don't think it's going to have any impact?
But yes, Pakistan Army may, if they don't make a headway with the FATF, may get reined in because of the financial crunches and the elimination of the entire infrastructure of JAS in Kashmir Valley. That may affect it. But I'm sure there are other organizations will come out with, because they are all out to please US to let the Afghan issue resolved. If you hear that, the amount of money they have spent to seize their western border, the amount of efforts they have put in, they would like that to go through it so that they can, look into this side. They would like not to spend more money on that side. So that is what we got to look into.
Do you believe the bailout, the financial situation, the resources being stretched thin is a contributing factor?
Absolutely. I think, the Americans are squeezing them like anything on the IMF. The UAE and Saudi Arabia have not delivered all that they promised, far less than what they had promised. And therefore, it is a tightening of the screw. Don't forget, UAE and Saudi Arabia are American allies. They'll go by what the Americans say. And Pakistan is at the receiving end of that economic squeeze. They have not got what they expected from Saudi Arabia.
And it certainly has.
So I think this pressure will continue.
America से न्यूयॉर्क